right, everybody, we got another very special guest for you all. I want everybody to welcome to the show, Mary Dumas. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Hey, Mary.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Good.
I'm doing good.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate that. And always, our first time guests. We'll talk about your Kickstarter coming up, the lucky ones, in a second here. But we always want to hear an origin story from the first time guest. So I know you've done some comics in the past, things like that. So where did it all start for you as far as creating comics?
Well, creating comics-wise only started 10 years ago. I honestly had never put two and two together about comics.
Mm-hmm.
I had been writing, well, of course, I read and collected comics forever. I've always been a Captain America fanatic.
Oh, yeah. You and Chris are best friends now. There you go.
But I never put two and two together about making comics because I'd always been writing screenplays.
Oh, okay.
I've been writing screenplays for decades, but they've getting a screenplay to anybody to become anything is a bloody miracle. Mm-hmm. So I've got, drawers full of screenplays and they're not going to go anywhere. So this independent comic book making was something that an acquaintance of mine said, have you ever thought about doing that? And I was like, no, where do you start?
Yeah, right.
And then this acquaintance of mine said, well, why don't we do one together? Let's make a webcomic. And this was about 8 years ago.
Okay.
So we worked on a because we're two girls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We decided to work on a webcomic that in the vernacular of manga, which is what I'm more familiar with as far as that goes, is something called yaoi, which is man loves man, male on male romance, right?
Okay. Yep.
And we did that for 5 years. We ended up with 250 pages of fun comic, hilarious comic.
Yeah.
And we were really ready to do something with it in 2020. And then, well, we all know what happened in 2020.
Right. Unfortunately, yep.
So we put it up on Amazon through their KDP program.
Okay.
And it was up there for 2 years. Had a pretty good run. And then Amazon, I don't know who called them, but they decided to pull it down and called it pornography. So that was the end of that.
Wow. Some disgruntled fan out there.
But I got the bug then. That was like the bug. And I decided I was going to do something with something I've been working on for years because I started writing this with my father, who was a World War II veteran. And he actually went to his 50th reunion, expecting to find no one there that he knew, just as the gentleman in my story. And when he got there, they started calling the names of all of the gentlemen who were there, in this unit. And they called my dad's name. And he was wheelchair bound. So he raised his arm and here. Yeah. And off behind him, he heard a gentleman say, "No, you're dead." And that thus began his writing of what happened the night that he thought they all died. And this other gentleman thought they all died.
Wow.
And so he wrote this story, and then, it ended up becoming pretty popular. It ended up in the Yankee magazine, not Yankee magazine, Armed Forces magazine, something like that. Ended up in there.
Wow.
But in the meantime, he'd gotten the bug, and I'd gotten the bug to finish writing things and talk about his time, because for all the years prior to that, he never mentioned a whole lot about his World War II.
Wow. Yeah. A lot of people don't.
PTSD, the whole 9 yards, which I also look at in this story that I'm writing. So I ended up getting a lot of stories out of my dad that just became kind of bits and pieces that I chunked together into this script for this comic book. Some of it is a little bit true. Some of it is my dad's recollections, which are good luck with finding out if they're true or not.
Take his word for it.
Yeah, got to take his word for it. He would have been 101 years old this coming Wednesday, which is why I decided to run the Kickstarter this coming Wednesday.
Perfect.
So, I've already got. I found wonderful people to help me with this. People who are actually, not only are they very good in comic books, they're also very acutely aware of World War II. You know, historically, just fanish, all those sorts of things. So it's been a real wild ride for the past year and a half. Nah, not quite a year and a half. About a year. Putting together the art and the lettering and the colors and all the things you do to make a comic book.
Yeah.
So now, 24 pages coming out on Kickstarter starting this week.
So this story that you're telling, is it taking place in the way that the story of your father went, meaning like a modern day, and he's recalling events?
Yes. Oh, wow. In fact, that's exactly the way I've decided to do it, which, every now and then I rethink it and say, why am I doing it this way? But it starts out with a page of what looks like something happening right then and there, and then we find out that the gentleman is having a nightmare. Whoops. A nightmare. Okay. He's awakening from his nightmare. So we start out with the conversation that he is, it's 1995, and his grandson finds this invitation to a 50th reunion on the internet, which of course, 1995, the internet. Finding people on the internet nowadays is hard enough.
Right.
To find somebody in 1995 was quite
even harder.
Yeah. Anyway, so they make the plan after the grandson does a lot of convincing. They make the plan that they're going to take a train and go to the reunion, which is taking place in Boston. And we never really say where Bill is living, but it's assumed that he's living in the New York City area, because why would he be, going on a train to Boston?
Right.
So my artist has really done a fantastic job of interweaving the present of 1995 with the past of 1941 through 1945.
Yeah, the art is absolutely... So for people who are just listening, she's showing us these amazing pages, sneak previews, and the art is actually fantastic.
Yes. So like where Bill is talking about where he's going, where, his grandson is basically what I was, pulling teeth out of my father to get stories about World War II, because I know we are very familiar with PTSD and that stuff nowadays.
Right.
But in 1995, it wasn't really talked about that much, and for sure it wasn't talked about in 1945.
Oh, yeah.
No way. It's only recently that it's become part of the vernacular of our world. So that was hard to write, because you can't say PTSD, you can't say cell phones, you can't say, all these 1995 things that don't exist or didn't exist then and do exist now. Dial telephones.
Oh, yeah.
They were attached to the wall, everybody.
Of course, we go into some of the story where he's doing the background of why the heck he had to join the army anyway, because of course so why go back through the history that we all know, because we all read it.
Right, exactly.
We all saw it on, whatever Tom Hanks movie. So I don't have to go into all of that background. which is great because I'm totally annoyed when every time you see a Batman movie, they've given you the entire background again. We know.
Yeah, right.
We know his mom and dad died. We don't need to know that again.
Mary, me and you were going to get along just swimmingly.
Yeah. He complains about that every Batman movie. Oh yeah. He has the same thoughts.
No, it's
anyway.
Not to compare traumas, because the trauma is trauma and everything. But I'm of the generation. Mike's a little bit younger than me, so I don't know. We never talked about this. I don't know if you went through this or not, Mike. But a lot of my friends went over to Iraq. And dealing with that when they came back and trying to talk to them and what happened over there, and also being a dumb kid and asking dumb questions. I know the fact that people who have gone to war and come back have little to no interest of ever talking about it, and in most cases want to bottle it up and never discuss it again, and that causes its own problems too. So I can only imagine with somebody who went through World War II, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know anybody that went through that personally, so that seems like it would be a whole other thing as well for you and then the person in the story.
It's really it's really inspiring, and that's why they call them the greatest generation. They did some things that, honestly, I look at some of the stuff that's going on in Ukraine right now, and I look at the heroes there, and I can truly see when you have to do something, you do it.
Yeah, there's no. Because I'm always of the thing of like, would I have done that? Would I, like in World War II, would I have had the gall to just get up and go overseas to fight a war? But like in that day, they didn't have the ability to question it, right? They had to do it. Yeah.
They didn't really have conscription until the war had already started. So a lot of people did join because they had the gumption to get up and join.
Right.
Much like the Ukrainian army is doing right now, where they have to defend their homeland. They already had a standing army, but now we've got the guys with that were just farmers being
right.
The guys.
Oh yeah. Yep. So I mean, you said that you're not going to get too much into World War II, but this is more of like is this kind of like a love letter to you and your father's relationship, of like, it's kind of how you get to keep him in the story? And yeah,
it is in some ways. In other ways, it's me as a woman looking at how men have behaved, how things have happened that we as women didn't have any input in, but we had to view from the outside. Also, because I've never been in a battle, I've never had to kill anyone. I don't have the real way of explaining that feeling, but I do have a way of explaining friendships, deep, exhausting friendships, and I have a way of explaining love between people that isn't necessarily jumping into bed love. It's the kind of love where you'd give your life for someone. Excuse me.
Okay.
So I think I bring a little something different to the stories that that Sergeant Rock, as an example, would not have brought to the story. That Billy Tucci would not have brought to the story. But yet, I do, of course, have to bring in some of the battles so that people know what the timeline is. So I do indeed have to, I need to know the history as I'm writing. And, as I'm writing, I wrote this thing 10 years ago.
Wow, okay.
Now it's finally going to become something. But, and it's funny when you're writing something or rewriting it, as is the case. It is funny what you wrote 10 years ago, and you look at it again and go, what was I thinking?
Yeah. You do a lot of growing and learning in 10 years, right?
Yes.
One would hope.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I have a question. So was your father was a combat engineer?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, can you explain to me a little? Because I'm an engineer, but I don't know what a combat engineer is. So I'm.
It's easiest to explain this with the concept that the combat engineers say. The combat engineers say we are charged with making things so people can go forward and win this war. That means they were the first ones there blowing up the bridges. They were the first ones there taking down the farmhouses so that the infantry could hide behind the farmhouses. They were the first ones there when they discovered an example of a bunch of Tiger tanks were hiding around a corner, ready to pounce on the unsuspecting, infantry. But they were the ones that were there to destroy an area so that the Tiger tanks couldn't come through and get the infantry.
Okay.
Which is why, and this is the truth, there was at the time during World War II, they estimated that the average combat engineer had a life expectancy of 53 seconds in live combat. Right now, it's 6 months in live combat. It's not a great job.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, like if you said 6 months, that would have been awful. But then down to the 53 seconds is like, wow.
And they didn't. They carried their rifle. They acted as infantry, but first they went out and blew shit up.
Yeah.
And by blowing shit up, by knowing how to blow shit up, they also were they were in a very dangerous job. Mm-hmm. They could blow themselves up accidentally or on purpose. Huh. There is one story recently of a combat engineer in the Ukrainian war who the bridge that they needed to blow so that the Russians couldn't come through would not light. He went onto the bridge and sacrificed his life to make it blow up.
Wow.
And that's what these guys did.
Wow. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's like Mike said earlier. I couldn't imagine.
It's crazy. And you can make the correlation today to that. That's insane. Very relevant.
That said, you end up with, because I want to humanize these guys, you end up with the stories about, how come you're in the combat engineers instead of what you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because he couldn't tell red from green. He was colorblind.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow.
Which you wonder, nowadays the combat engineers do have lights on their things. Red means don't blow this. Green means it's ready to go. Can you imagine a colorblind guy? Not nowadays.
Yeah.
Back then, the plunger's up, the plunger's down.
Right. There's a not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, and if your expectancy is 53 seconds, the unfortunate reality there is probably we need some bodies over here.
Yes. Anyway, as I was saying, there is comedy in this story. There's comedy in the barracks. There's comedy among the guys. None of them are there because they wanted to be there. They're kind of the dirty dozen. They kind of got gathered because otherwise they'd have gotten a blue ticket and been out of the army. But at the time, they were needed, So they always gave a second chance in many ways. We've got one guy who talks with his fists about everything. We've got another guy that his answer, why are you stuck with us, Tex? Everybody's got a nickname.
Okay, yep.
Because I didn't want to give anybody any last names because this is about every man, It's not, my uncle. Look, my uncle's in here. No, he's not.
Yeah,
this is a conglomeration of a bunch of guys.
Okay.
But like one of them is, why are you stuck with us, Tex? And the answer is, I'm the reason no gambling among the squad is in Sarge's rules list.
Yeah, okay.
So,
awesome. So you've said you've got like a conglomeration of characters, and they're all kind of unique in their own way. And obviously, some of the story is, while true, somewhat fabricated in ways to make it work. do you follow a timeline that's historically accurate? Like, did you actually research that and make sure that everything fits in the timeline from history?
Oh, wow.
Sometimes that's hard, but it does help with the writing. You can't go off into, let's follow this path down this rabbit hole. We gotta go. The next step is.
So you have to do the research.
That's I am keeping it as historically accurate as possible within a fictional story. And of course, this is something that I'm kind of iffy about letting everybody know, but I should let everybody know. There are 2 gay men in the squad. Again, they're probably there as a second chance. Otherwise, they'd have been kicked out. And when you get kicked out with a blue ticket, you don't get your VA benefits. You don't get any of the honors that come to a veteran, no matter anything. I mean, and so the 2 gentlemen were honestly keeping it a complete secret, and the squad, by virtue of the fact after knowing what these 2 gentlemen were capable of, very capable, very well versed in building and destruction and all of that, the squad decided as a group that they were part of their team, their squad. Of course, there is a big fight in the beginning when everybody finds out. It's not a happy, oh, I love you because, it's more it's more in keeping with what really happened during the 1940s.
Yes. That's another thing that wasn't talked about along with PTSD back then. It was,
it was they were roommates.
Yeah.
That's John and Bill, they're roommates.
Yep.
So you keep mentioning the blue chip. Is that just for clarification? Is that like dishonorably discharged?
That's a less than honorable discharge. It's not dishonorably discharged, but it's less than honorable. I don't think they actually. Well.
So that's kind of below dishonorably discharged.
Yeah, it's something similar to dishonorably discharged.
Okay.
But it also meant that if you came back with one of those to the U.S. in 1945, you didn't get a job.
Right. Nobody wants to do anything with you. Yeah.
You were not, you were not welcome back into the arms of the American way. So most of the time, these gentlemen, if you look at even just now, you look at the way that the world works, the way that human beings are. Apparently, 1 in 10 of us is some level of gay.
Mm-hmm.
So, in World War II, we've got these 12 guys in this unit. 2 of them or 1 of them being gay is not outside of the possibility.
Right. It's just a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that you're bringing that up as like, it doesn't matter, like whatever you are, you're still seen as part of a family or the group within the troop, because I have a friend that was overseas and he always had such a hard time dealing with people that have prejudices towards one another, whether it's, racial or, homophobia, anything like that, because he never understood it. Because like when you were in the desert and it's just you and the enemy, it's like, you don't see these people other than family. That's it. Like there's no difference between them or anybody else. And I'm glad that you talk about that, because that's a huge thing that a lot of those guys came back with. So I think that's important.
You've got my back. I've got your back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of people don't see it that way. It's easy for, it's easier for someone to just have hate for something else and like these prejudices. But it's like when you've been put in that situation and it boils down to like, why not? Why can't this person just be the same as me? We're all the same. It's like, it's tough for people to see it that way, I guess. So, but yeah, I'm glad you bring that up.
The other side of that is that's, in other cases, that's a great way for people to accept the other side. Like he had my back. Like it's kind of a cliche of like, we didn't like each other at first, but then he had my back. But I've heard those stories too, where it's, the old, there's no atheist in the foxhole thing. Like, when you get down into the trenches, like it's no longer what are you, what am I? It's we're all trying to survive and we got to have each other's back.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one quote that this is directly from my dad, was just because we didn't talk about them doesn't mean they weren't there.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. That's big. I can't wait to read. I mean, you have a lot of good things you're touching on in this book, and it sounds like a great story. And you said it. Well, the show comes out on Wednesday, so it's coming out this Wednesday.
Yeah, the Kickstarter.
Yep.
Kickstarter.
So, can you talk about a little bit what you're offering with the Kickstarter? Or is it just a single issue, print one issue, and
one at a time?
Okay.
Obviously, the way the Kickstarter works best is when you build a following, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so rather than just coming out with the whole, here's my graphic novel,
Yeah,
buy
right.
it. Instead, you come out with those 24-page floppies, right? And writing a comic book is in 24-page informational groups, right? Then when you put it together into a graphic novel, sometimes you have to edit it. Most times you don't, but sometimes you have to edit it so that it flows. But so what I'm doing is I'm doing a 24-page floppy. My rewards, thank you.
Yeah.
In your moment. My rewards are, of course, there's the $1 reward, which basically I'm naming, I don't want any crap, but I like your stuff. The people who are like, I need another book in the house, like I need a hole in the head.
Right.
So that's my first reward. My second reward is a $5 reward, which is the PDF. So you can read it on your screen, which, seems to be the way a lot of people read nowadays. They get their iPad out and they get page after page and read it that way. And then, of course, the third reward is a $10 request. And with that, you get not only the PDF, but you get the printed copy. And that would come to you in the mail. The hardest part about that was figuring out how to price the mail.
The shipping. Yeah, I can imagine.
You got to include, it's got to be in plastic. It's got to have a backboard.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that was fun. Then there's a $15 reward, which is the only reason that it's 15 is because I am going to write a personal note to each and every person telling them about my father. Because I think that it's important to people who would otherwise not know why this came about.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And so that's the $15 reward. Then it jumps all the way to $100. And that one, no, wait, there's a $50 reward that I'm calling the classrooms and retail reward.
Okay.
Where for the $50, they would get 6 copies. And that way they can, sell it at their retail shop for a good price, or they can have the, pass it out to classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But I have put a warning on that one saying, this is written for teens.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sex in it, but there is gay men and there is blood. So you decide, Basically, I'm saying, if you're in Texas, think about this twice before you pass it out to your classroom. Or maybe Florida.
Yeah, I was going to say Florida.
Anyway, but I'm not putting those out as PDFs because I don't feel that it's right for a classroom of kids to view something if they don't know the end of the story. Right. It really is the start of the story.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, the $100 reward, which I was just talking about, are those who really, really want the graphic novel to happen. And if they, and that one's going to go for all 8 of the fundraisers that are going to happen over the next year and a half. And at the end, they would get the full story. It would be it would be very well put together. There would be autographed plates in it from the author, as well as the artist, the letterer, and the editor, and other stories within the book to make it a full 200-page book. And that would be also, I'm offering that if they want their name in the book, I would put their name in the book to thank them for the big support that they're giving.
Wow. That's awesome. And you said the plan is to do all these Kickstarters within a year and a half, so you'll have a total of 8 Kickstarters?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Great.
And I've got 4 books ready to go. So it's not like it's not going to happen.
Right, exactly.
The artist is currently working on book 5, and the letterer is currently working to finish, or is already on book 3. So we're really pushing it. We're getting it happen.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I can't wait to I can't wait to read it. And yeah, that's great. So if our listeners and our viewers want to follow you, or see when the Kickstarter is coming out, is there any social media you can plug?
Oh, yes, of course. So first off, I'd offer my website, which is thelluckyones-comic.com. And that's where I'm being very, very active there. There's a blog on it. I'm up doing art versus lettering versus pencils. It's going the whole blog there, as well as a couple of reasons why I'm doing this. I miss you, Dad, is one of the main things.
Okay.
Then I've also got a Facebook page that's the Lucky Ones a World War II comic or a World War II story. Man, why can't I remember that right now? Anyway, it's all over the place right now.
Okay.
I go to the comic groups that I belong to and telling them, yeah, look what I'm doing. Awesome. I have had such wonderful feedback.
That's great.
From some of these groups. I'm just, I guess I'm too used to the blood and guts of social media. And here it is, these
all the
wonderful things that are saying, it just warms your heart about comic book makers, to be honest.
That's great. Yeah, it's so important to have that community and those people helping out too. It's great.
Yeah. Of all the people we've met through comics, I don't think I can name one that was negative or bad, or I don't think we've had a bad experience, to be honest, in terms of meeting people and talking to people.
They're all,
social media is what it is. But
all the indie Kickstarter club for comic creators is all really, they're all into promoting each other and building each other and helping out.
Very supportive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a great experience.
So everybody out there, I'll have the links to both Mary's website and the Kickstarter, which as you're watching or listening to this is going to be live either currently or sometime within the day. So click those links, check it out, and make sure to go there and follow Mary on all the social media. And once again, Mary, I want to thank you for coming on and talking to us. It was a blast. We hope to do it again with you sometime.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much.